Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to deconstruct the completely paradoxical, almost unbelievable training secrets of the Bronze-era strongmen. You know, we constantly hear that to get truly strong, you need the perfect periodized program, the latest supplements, incredibly specialized equipment, the whole shebang. But we're going to look at guys who shattered records and achieved world-class feats with, well, basically nothing.
To really put this into perspective, we need to compare modern athletes with Bronze-era legends, because the results are honestly kind of disorienting. Take Larry Wheels, right? An absolute modern phenom, pharmacologically assisted, who in 2026 pulled a staggering 675 pounds with a single arm, and that was using a strap. But then, you look back a full century, to 1920, Hermann Gerner pulled somewhere between 727 and 730 pounds with one hand, unsupported, no strap. Zero modern advantages. I mean, how is that even possible?
So, to figure out how guys from the 1880s to the 1930s were pulling off feats we literally still struggle to beat today, we're going to run through exactly what they didn't have. We'll start with the century-old strength gap, then get into their lack of periodization, which meant autoregulation, their radical generalist approach, adapting to non-standard equipment, their raw biological strength from physical labor, and finally wrap it all up with the Bronze-era blueprint.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the century-old strength gap.
We really got to wrap our heads around just how far ahead of the curve these guys were operating. I mean, they had absolutely zero modern sports science. The Bronze era kicked off in the 1880s, right? But the standardized Berg Olympic bar, the one with rotating sleeves that we all take for granted, that didn't even show up until 1928. The first athletic use of testosterone wasn't until 1941, and those modern periodization models that every serious lifter uses today, not introduced until the 1960s. These guys were setting world-class benchmarks decades before the basic framework of modern strength even existed.
Moving to Section 2, no periodization and the power of autoregulation.
What's super fascinating here is that not having those 1960s periodization models actually turned out to be their secret weapon. They didn't have loading phases or deload weeks or macrocycles. They relied totally on autoregulation, training entirely by feel. And there was a very practical reason for this. They were performing massive strength exhibitions on stage every single night. Think about it. If you completely fry your central nervous system hitting a true 1-rep max on a Tuesday, there's no way you're lifting a literal horse for a paying crowd on Wednesday. So they instinctively mastered chronic submaximal training.
There's this fantastic quote from Edgar Mueller about Hermann Gerner that really hits the nail on the head. He noted that Gerner trained as the mood took him, varying things based on his energy, and crucially, never forced himself. He didn't have a spreadsheet telling him what to lift. He just listened to his body and let his daily readiness dictate his intensity. So the big takeaway here? They definitely weren't chasing rep volume like a modern bodybuilder. They were hitting heavy movements almost every day, but rarely, if ever, pushing to an absolute failure point. They kept the reps super low, usually around 3, maybe 4 max, and just made these tiny incremental 5-kilo jumps. Keeping sets brief but demanding allowed them to accumulate a massive amount of heavy work over time without burning out.
Next up, Section 3, the radical generalist approach. When we compare modern athletes with Bronze-era legends on this front, the contrast is just, well, it's wild. Today, strength culture is obsessed with specialization. A powerlifter focuses heavily on just 3 lifts. An Olympic weightlifter focuses on 2. But Gerner, he was regularly training 15 to 20 distinct lifting skills. What we chop up into totally separate sports today, he treated as one giant, unified physical practice.
And it wasn't just random chaotic training either. He ran a really sophisticated menu of movements, systematically rotating through about 12 unique styles, hitting maybe 4 in a given session. We're talking kettlebells, dumbbells, barbells, one-handed snatches, two-handed cleans. He even built freakish grip strength by deadlifting with 3 fingers, 2 fingers, or literally just 1 finger. He was building bulletproof strength across every possible plane of motion.
All right, Section 4, adapting to non-standard equipment. Not having standardized, perfectly balanced barbells forced these guys to adapt in ways that a modern gym just can't replicate. The legendary Louis Cyr is a perfect example. As a kid, he actually tried to copy the ancient Greek myth of Milo of Croton by carrying around a young calf. Well, eventually the calf got too big and started kicking, so Cyr adapted. He switched to carrying a grain sack a quarter mile every day, literally adding 2 pounds of grain to the sack daily. He was using odd object progressive overload before that was even a term.
And that baseline of awkward farm labor led directly to legendary implements like the Cyr dumbbell. This thing was a nightmare to lift, massive, thick-handled, and weighing over 273 pounds when he loaded it with lead shot.
Sir pressed this overhead with one arm in 1892. It's such a uniquely brutal implement that the Arnold Strongman Classic actually casts it in bronze to use as their grand trophy today.
If you're wondering just how well that odd object training translated to raw power, let me throw a number at you. 4,337. That is the exact weight, in pounds, that Louis Cyr backlifted in Boston in 1895. He literally lifted a massive platform with 18 full-grown men standing on it. That's nearly 2 tons, and it's a feat that hasn't been reliably beaten in 130 years. It absolutely proves the value of training with unstable, non-standard loads. Which brings us to Section 5, biological strength and physical labor.
This is the final and maybe most important defining absence. The sheer, terrifying power these guys generated was 100% biological. Remember, the very first documented use of testosterone in sports wasn't until 1941. The Bronze Era, spanning the 1880s to the 1930s, missed the pharmacological age entirely.
So, where did all that strength come from? Brutal, daily physical labor. Louis Cyr started working in freezing winter lumber camps when he was only 12. He worked on farms, in textile mills. He spent his life moving genuinely unpredictable, shifting loads. Wet logs, heavy hay, saturated grain sacks. Objects that fight back when you try to move them. What we try to artificially engineer for an hour in the gym today, these guys were accumulating naturally through a lifetime of total physical reality.
And finally, Section 6, the Bronze Era Blueprint. Let's pull this all together. The gap between the absolute peaks of the Bronze Era and today is shockingly small. In fact, in certain functional lifts, the Bronze Era still wins, and it's all because they had basically nothing. That lack of technology forced a radical simplicity. The blueprint is right in front of us. High frequency but intuitive practice, massive variety, odd object lifting, and treating the whole body as one unit. They weren't locked into machines, they were moving raw, awkward mass through space.
So it kind of leaves you with a burning question, right? When we look back at those 130-year-old records that are somehow still standing today, you have to wonder, in all our decades of chasing the perfect periodized program and engineering the ultimate standardized equipment, did we accidentally engineer the raw adaptive power right out of our physical potential? It's definitely something to chew on. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.